Welcome to another Unitrend Certified Administrator course. Today we're going to talk about data copy access jobs. To configure a data copy access job, we can come to Jobs, create a data copy access job, but we are going to edit the one that we already have existing. This one is configured for VMware, though it is of course available for Hyper-V as well. And in my example, I have an application server, a domain controller, and a SQL server. Though I could be choosing from image level backups as well as Windows replicas from file level backups. From here, I'll need to configure the options for where this needs to be recovered to. This is what we call a lab profile. In this particular lab profile, I have configured this system to ensure that the backups themselves are never older than 24 hours old, and that it doesn't take more than an hour for the systems to be booted and verified. And when it does that, it will be using the CPU and memory from this virtual host while it lives in a sandbox network that we defined on that host. So within VMware here, I've just defined a sandbox virtual switch for those machines to talk over. If I was doing a failover with this job, it would put it on the real network and begin to copy it to the data store that we chose here. In this case, though, because we're doing testing, it just lives on the Unitrends appliance, and the storage is only used for swap space. From there, we can choose how often we want the machine to be protected, or rather tested, through this job. Then we can choose the options for the test. So under the pencil icon here, this is the first server to boot. It will wait 2 minutes after VMware Tools starts before it tries to run any tests on the machine. We then log in through VMware Tools using the credentials here to run a test to check for Active Directory, DHCP, and more. So we can add our own custom scripting for testing, do after the fact malware scans through ClamAV, check for SQL, ping hosts, check for any Windows service, check for words on a website, or things like AD. So you would schedule these to where they come up in a particular order. The SQL server only coming up after Active Directory has been verified is good. Then it will log in with an Active Directory login to check and see if SQL is up. And then and only then after we know that Active Directory and SQL is up and available, we can bring up our application server and verify that its service starts correctly. So at any point in time, I can run a test, and that would stand them up, verify everything worked correctly, and then tear it down and give me a report of how long it all took. But I can also choose to do an instant lab here. And an instant lab does the same thing a test does, only it leaves it up at the end of the test. That way you can make changes within the sandboxed machines. You could roll these back in time if you needed to verify whether or not someone installed an update that broke something, or if there was a ransomware attack. We could roll back all the servers prior to when Unitrends alerted us that there was an attack and see if those were clean. Something that's not necessarily obvious is that Unitrends is heuristically looking at the data we bring in. And by using machine learning and looking at statistics like how much your data usually changes on a day-to-day basis and how compressible and how deduplicatable it is, when we see statistics like a really high entropy backup or very out of the normal change rate for a system, we can pop open an alert to let you know we saw something that looked risky to us within this backup and that you should verify that that system's clean. And if you find that it's not, we can now roll back prior to that alert into an isolated network, attach antivirus utilities, and make sure that they're clean. And then when we're done with that, and we've run our lab, and I've kicked one off already in the background here. If we come here, we'll have to take a look at the currently running lab. So it is booting the domain controller right now. So again, it's going to do everything that a test would do. We're going to start the 3 machines. We're going to reconfigure them to put them on the sandbox network, and then we're going to power them on and check the services as we go. So again, we'll come here. We can see the .copy here. This is our virtual machine running from the Unitrends appliance, and you'll see the data store created down here as well. You can see here the hard disk comes from the Unitrends appliance, and the sandbox network is where this is connected, since we don't want this to conflict with production. Let's go ahead and make sure that that console loads okay. Yep, that's running okay. Let's go back over to the UI here. So now it's going to check for Active Directory. So again, this feature is super powerful. We can bring up machines, test and verify that services within the machines work correctly, and give you automated reports that tell you not only did the machine come up, but that any interconnected services came up with it, and how long it would really truly take to recover the environment. In our example in our lab, this takes about 7 to 11 minutes. So sometimes I have to increase the delay for the NTDS service, as it doesn't always necessarily start right away. But the other two services came up successfully. I'll continue on to start the other machines. Instead of waiting for this to continue, we'll go ahead and just look at one of the more recent reports. Here under Recovery Assurance, again, you can see we power on the machines in the correct order, validating the services as we move through. And when we're done, we would tear everything down and update our compliance report. If I come back to reports, under compliance report, I can generate that report by clicking here and seeing how long these machines normally take to start. We'll need to wait for this to transition into Instant Lab, but once it does, what we'll be able to do, under this icon here, there will be an options menu where we can commit or discard the lab. Commit will start to move the disks over to the VMware volume that we chose. Discard would delete the machines and tear them down. Note that you would still need to set the network adapter to move them off the sandbox network. We also again have the failover option. Failover is very similar to how Instant Lab works. You would again choose what point in time you'd like to bring these up to. And when they come up, when you hit commit, they will begin to copy over to the storage right away. That way your users can immediately begin working with it on the real network while it copies in the background. Please do remember that VMware requires VMware Standard or higher for storage vMotion, though Hyper-V does not have this limitation. For those that would like to wait, we will wait here for the data copy access job to switch over into Instant Lab so I can show the options for commit and discard. But this is all that is in this module. And I don't have a way to pause this. So enjoy. Think of this like an Easter egg, where you get to enjoy me as a person for just a few seconds. So hi, I'm Justin. I've been with the company as a customer for over 10 years and directly with the company as an employee coming up on my 9th year. This year being 2022. can see here, each server comes up in the appropriate order. SQL here, booted. And we're reaching in through VMware tools and saying, hey, go run check service, this PowerShell script I've given you, and asking it to see whether or not that service comes up. We also get this by email. Let me see if I can dig that out here. So here's an example of a daily report. You'll see up at the very top, it tells you how long everything took. So we started the instant recoveries, reconfigured them, put them on the correct network, then tested the services in the correct order as we moved through. There's also a debug trace log here. I love to show this part off as well because it really shows you exactly what we're doing. We're just pushing a server check through PowerShell and having a check to see if the service is started. Coming back to our lab. This is working on its last bits here. Now, if we come back over to the job manager, we can see that this now is in the status of Instant Lab, where I could choose to commit, where it would begin to move the machines to the data store that we have chosen, or discard, which will delete the machines. And that's it. Thank you so much for your time. If you have further questions, please check our admin guide or our other guides on Kaseya University. Thank you and have a great day.